point to that portion of your report where you indicate that my client said the words, "I hit him"?
It doesn't say that.
Can you point to your report, the portion of your report, where you indicate that you told the doctors and nurses that she said, "I hit him"?
Doesn't say that.
Can you point to that portion of your report where you indicate that your concern for the patient was that he had been hit by a car?
Doesn't say that.
Hi everybody, welcome back to those of you returning. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, a big welcome to those of you who are tuning in for the very first time here at Fair and Square Files. In today's video, I'm going to be delving into the cross-examination as a follow-up from the last one that we did in regards to Lieutenant Anthony Flematti. Now this is a defense cross-examination. As the trial progresses, of course, tensions start to rise, new questions emerge, etc., etc. I think we saw that throughout the course of the very first week. How did you guys find that first week? Did you have more questions and answers at the end of it, a little bit like myself at the end of the week? Or has it galvanized your original suspicions regarding what transpired that fateful morning? Just remember, once again, keep the comments as respectful and empathetic as possible. We really appreciate that. Obviously, it's a pretty contentious case. Everybody has a differing opinion on what happened that morning. Here's hoping that over the course of the next few weeks, the light of truth shines bright. Anyway, here is the cross-examination. Thank you once again. Thanks for subscribing as well. Awesome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to start sort of at the beginning. When you first arrived
Yes.
at the location, you indicated that you could, in fact, see the body from your perspective, correct?
I could see a body, yes.
And I think you indicated the shape of the body.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell if it was female or male,
Nope.
but obviously looked like a human figure.
Yes.
Okay. That drew your attention to the left side of the ambulance as you were approaching, correct?
Yes.
And you're sitting on the right side, which means you're sort of the furthest away from that figure from the perspective of the ambulance.
And the ambulance, yes.
And you had no problem making out that figure in the snow.
So figure in the snow, we had a good distance between the ambulance and the engine, so yes.
Okay. And you indicated that the figure in the snow was on top of the snow, if you will, with some snow accumulating up the body of the individual.
Yes.
But he was not covered in snow.
No.
There wasn't like a mound of snow over this figure.
There were mounds of snow in the area, but not over the patient. Due to the wind, there were snow drifts in the area.
And his clothes were dark as compared to the white snow.
Yes.
I want to ask you a couple of quick questions about some of the last conversation you had with Mr. Lowley about the injuries. You did note that Mr. O'Keefe had a laceration over his right eye, correct?
No, over his right eye.
Over his right eye.
There's a contusion over the eye.
Okay, and your definition of a contusion is,
Bruising.
was it also swollen?
There was swelling around the eyes and a little bit of contusion and bruising around.
Did you see an actively bleeding laceration over his right eye?
I don't recall.
You don't remember that. What about his left eye?
Both eyes were pretty well swollen shut.
What about not from the nostrils, but on the skin on the nose? Did you note a laceration or multiple lacerations on the nose?
So due to the bleeding that was coming from the orifices, trying to clean the area and find exactly where it's from is sometimes difficult, so we can just say it was bleeding in that area.
Okay, so you can't define, as you sit here, you don't remember if it was bleeding from the nostril or from a laceration on the nose?
I believe it was the nostrils.
Okay. Are you saying that there was no laceration on the skin of the nose, or you just don't recall it?
On the top of the nose, no, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
On the top of the nose, I don't recall.
You don't recall. Okay. With regard to his abdomen, you indicated that it was distended,
Yes.
a medical term for swollen.
Yep.
You said that could be from trauma or it could be just bloating, correct?
Correct.
Did you notice any contusions on his abdomen?
No.
Any skin that was abraded
No.
or cut?
No.
So there was no bruising, no contusion, but there was a distension, correct?
Yes.
So there was no visible trauma to the abdomen.
visible trauma doesn't really matter to internal trauma. It's not always indicative one way or the other.
So my question was, did you see any visible trauma on his abdomen?
No.
Okay. But you did note that it was bloated.
That it was distended, yeah.
Okay. I want to talk to you for a second about, if I could shift gears, about the conversation that you indicated to Mr. Lally that you had with Ms. Reed. You were also asked about that conversation at the grand jury when you testified, correct?
Correct.
You testified that as the lead paramedic, you were specifically trying to get as much information from my client, Ms. Reed, as you possibly could concerning the victim and how the victim ended up being there, correct?
Correct.
You indicated, in no particular order, that you asked questions like, how do you know him, correct?
Correct.
How did he get here?
Correct.
What happened?
Correct.
Is there any additional information you could give me about what happened to this person?
Correct.
Okay, so that was a conversation that you were personally engaged in with my client in order to gather as much data, if you will, about what you were dealing with, correct?
Correct.
But your focus was, when you first arrived, your focus is, I need to attend to the patient, correct?
Correct.
Like, conversations notwithstanding, I need to deal with what's in front of me, which is an unconscious man in the snow,
Correct.
dressed inappropriately
Correct.
and possibly freezing to death.
Correct.
But you did say that you had enough of a conversation with Ms. Reed that she answered you and said something to the effect of, I hit him, oh my God, I hit him.
Correct.
So then you followed up on that conversation, correct?
As much as I could, yes.
As a matter of fact, you said that you asked her additional elaborating questions.
Correct.
Well, did you hit him in the face? Or did you kick him? Did you hit him with your hand? Okay. So that's a conversation that you're having with Ms. Reed face to face.
Correct.
You're talking to her, you're looking her in the eyes, she's looking you in the eyes, you're standing still, and you're attempting as best you can to converse with this woman so that you can gather as much information as you possibly can as you attend to the victim.
Correct.
You indicated that that conversation lasted long enough that the conversation was frustrated by the fact that you weren't getting information that was helpful to you. So you turned that conversation over to Katie McLaughlin.
Objection? Sustained. Ask it a different way.
Sure. Did you have, was your conversation in some way in your mind, and when I use the word frustrated, I mean it was just, you weren't getting the information that you were seeking, correct?
It wasn't productive.
Okay, better way to put it, I'll use your word. That conversation was unproductive enough that you then moved the conversation over to Ms. McLaughlin, correct?
Correct.
Firefighter McLaughlin. And once Firefighter McLaughlin engaged Ms. Reed, you then began to attend to the patient again.
So the patient was already being treated by the other personnel on scene.
Okay?
I started the conversation, realized it wasn't going anywhere. I had other responsibilities. So regardless of how they ended there, they still needed treatment
Of course.
and transport. So that began my priority and moved her over to try and get as much information while treatment was being done.
What part of the treatment were you responsible for?
All of it.
Sorry, that's a great answer to a very vague question.
Yep.
What physically were you doing with Mr. O'Keefe?
In which particular moment?
When you first arrived and attended to him and physically touched him, in other words, were you the airway person? Were you the cardiac person? Were you doing chest compressions? Were you squeezing the bag?
I would have been doing chest compressions initially until I could delegate that task to somebody else.
Okay. And chest compressions, I'm going to butcher this because I've never been trained other than my little toddler. They look a little like what I'm doing now, correct?
Correct.
And I indicated palm over one palm over my hand, arms extended, and you can see my shoulders moving up and down in a rhythmic fashion, correct? So if
I didn't get an answer, correct?
yes, I'll wait till then. What were you wearing?
What was I wearing? My uniform.
Didn't expect that one, did you?
That was a different one. Heavy winter coat,
Okay.
a uniform.
Do paramedics wear sometimes yellow, bright yellow for safety?
Yes.
Were you wearing a bright yellow heavy winter coat?
I don't recall. I have a few different coats.
Got it. Got it. Do you remember what Miss McLaughlin was wearing?
I don't.
Okay. That conversation that you had with Ms. Reed at the scene, that had to have lasted, I'm not guessing it was very long, but it had to have lasted a minute
At most, yeah.
at most. Once you finished your conversation with Ms. Reed, did you then start attending specifically to the chest compressions and the high-level CPR that we've heard so much about from your colleague?
Yes.
As you're doing the CPR on the scene, that high-level CPR, high-quality CPR, was Mr. O'Keefe then moved to the scoop, which would then facilitate getting him on a gurney.
Correct.
That gurney was then moved between a couple of patrol cars, cruisers, and into the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
Once you were in the ambulance, the first priority is to get this person warm. Is that right?
First priority is always going to be CPR. The secondary would be getting them warmed up.
Okay. So obviously, when you got into the ambulance, you would shut the doors.
Correct.
There's a heater on in the ambulance.
Yes.
You never came back out of that ambulance after you got Mr. O'Keefe into the ambulance, did you?
No.
Okay. And you were in there with firefighter Nuttall at the time?
Nuttall and Kelly.
And firefighter McLaughlin was outside the ambulance doing whatever she was doing.
Correct.
Okay.
Initially, and then she came in afterwards to
Obviously.
assist. Yeah.
And did I hear you correctly, when firefighter McLaughlin got in the ambulance, she took over the driving responsibilities?
So there's two different compartments. They're not connected. There's a little window between the two areas. So she assisted with interventions in the back. And then after we had established everything we needed to on scene to begin transport, she then got out and then started driving.
Got it. Thank you. I'd like to play, first I'd like to have marked, I think it's already been marked, Exhibit 379. It's a video, a snippet of a video. It's probably 3 minutes long. It's not that long. I'd like to play that portion of the video for you. And when it's done, firefighter Nuttall, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong notes. Firefighter Flematti, which is not that easy to say.
Did a great job.
I'm going to ask you to show me exactly where on the video, if you can, that you had this conversation
For the laser pointer?
with my client. Yes, you can use the laser pointer as you wish. This is just to orient you, if I may, Your Honor. The top, this, let me see if I can do this. There we go. The top is a dash cam from one cruiser.
So I'm gonna see counsel at sidebar for a second, please.
From screen left.
Yes.
Who's that?
I don't recall.
Let's go ahead and play it. And pause. I want to draw your attention to the left side of the top video. Did you see somebody wearing a bright yellow jacket?
If you could rewind it, I'd look at that area.
Why don't I play it forward?
Okay.
And see if you see that.
Yes.
Pause. And do you recognize that person?
I see a yellow jacket. I can't tell you who it is.
Okay. Based on your memory, have you seen this before, by the way?
No.
Based on your memory, is that the approximate position that Mr. O'Keefe was in when you or your colleagues made contact?
Approximately. I'd say a little bit more to the left. That would be, I guess.
Okay. Go ahead and play. Go ahead, pause it. You see the person enter from screen left into the frame.
It looks like a different person, yes.
That person right there. Looks like a long-haired female?
Yeah.
Does that appear to be my client?
From this angle, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Go ahead and play it. Pause. You see a person wearing yellow right there on the left side of the screen.
If you're telling me that's a person, sure, yes.
No, he's not telling you. So ask the question. If you don't see it, you don't see it. If you do, you do.
I can't tell what that shape is.
Okay, can you take a look, keep your eyes focused on that and tell me if you see that figure doing anything? Pause it. Okay, do you recognize that figure now?
I can't recognize the figure, but it looks like an up and down rhythmic motion
Okay.
that would indicate CPR.
Would that be you?
I couldn't tell you. Is the time accurate? Or 6:13?
I'm just asking you what you recognize on the video.
I couldn't tell you if that was myself or not.
Was there somebody else doing CPR?
Multiple people rotate through CPR, so yes.
Who was responsible for doing the chest compressions?
Whoever's closest to that area, we're all trained for that skill.
Okay, I'm asking in this particular case,
Yes.
I know everybody's trained. Did you testify earlier that you were the one doing the chest compressions?
I said I was one of them, yes.
Okay. Does that appear to be you doing the chest compressions?
It could be, I'm not sure.
Okay, let's go and play. Okay, stop it. Do you see the person basically in the middle of the screen there?
Yes,
Does that appear to be my client? Can you tell?
I can tell.
Go ahead and play it. Pause it. You see individuals entering from screen right.
Yes.
Who does that appear to be in the yellow jacket?
That build would have been probably, it could have been firefighter Kelly or it could have been McLaughlin.
Okay, and who's the person trailing the gurney? Right.
I can't tell.
Okay, let's go ahead and play. Go ahead and pause it. The person in the hood just obscured that figure. Did you see that figure standing on the other side of the person in the hood?
No.
Go ahead and play it. Pause it. The activity that's going on just to the sort of left side of the SUV in the frame, can you describe for the jurors what that activity is?
So that would be lowering the stretcher to get ready to load the patient on.
Okay. And now pause it. Now, this person now appears to be facing the camera. Do you now recognize that person?
I don't.
Go ahead. Pause. Can you focus your attention on that individual in the yellow jacket?
Yes.
What does that person seem to be doing?
CPR.
Which part of the CPR?
Chest compressions.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
It's okay. Chest compressions.
I want to make sure that Nancy can get down what we're both saying. So which part of the CPR?
Chest compressions.
Thank you. Is that you?
I don't know.
Okay. At this point, you have no idea whether or not you don't remember whether you were the one doing chest compressions when he was moved from the ground to the gurney?
I don't recall.
But you did earlier testify you were doing chest compressions.
I did at some point during this call, yes.
Okay. In the entire length of this video, did you see anybody else trade off from that person doing chest compressions from the time the person was on the ground to the gurney? Or is that the same person?
It could be the same person. I'm not sure.
Okay. Would you say that was probably you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay, go ahead.
Jurors, disregard that.
Pause it. I want to direct your attention to this person. It appears to be a firefighter in the middle. Do you see that person?
Yes.
Who's that?
Objection, may we?
The objection sustained. I'll see counsel at sidebar.
May I?
Yes.
Take a look at the person or the yellow in the middle of the screen. Do you recognize that?
As a fire jacket and build, I would guess it was either firefighter Kelly or.
So we don't want you to guess.
My best estimation would be firefighter McLaughlin.
Firefighter McLaughlin?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the phone. Pause. Recognize the person in the yellow jacket to the right of who you just described as firefighter McLaughlin.
No.
What is that person doing up here, apparently?
My guess would be, guess,
Not even an estimate. Do you know?
I don't know.
Next question.
Go ahead and play. Okay. Pause. At that point, did you join your colleagues in placing Mr. O'Keefe in the ambulance?
Yes.
Okay. Based on that, did that appear to be you following the gurney in the yellow jacket over to the ambulance?
Yes.
Okay. And who is the lead firefighter? When I say lead, I mean the one to the right, leading the gurney on the front side of the gurney.
I'm not sure.
Okay. One of your colleagues, though.
Yes.
What did you do once you left the frame? Where did you go?
That would have been into the ambulance.
And as you earlier indicated, shut the doors, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you never came back out?
No.
Okay. I'd like to draw your attention to the lower video.
Okay.
And we're just going to let that play for a couple of minutes and see if you recognize anything. I'll ask you to pause it in just a second. I'm going to ask you to look up to the top video. You see what appears to be a person wearing yellow to the right?
Yes.
But that's who that is.
No.
Go ahead. Looking at the lower video, do you see what appears to be a vehicle in the middle of the screen?
Yes.
What is that?
That is an ambulance.
Does that appear to be the ambulance that you arrived in?
Yes.
And that's the ambulance that you took Mr. O'Keefe to?
Yes.
Doors are closed?
Yes.
Are you in the ambulance at this point?
I'm not sure.
Well, if this was, let me just ask it a different way. If this was running continuously.
Yeah.
No pauses. You've already taken Mr. O'Keefe to the ambulance. Would you have gotten in the ambulance?
I don't recall.
Well, I mean, you're not standing outside the ambulance.
So if you know the answer.
I don't know.
Next question.
You have no idea whether you're in the ambulance or not at this point.
At this point, no.
Okay. Would you have gone anyplace else when you left the frame?
Could have been to gather equipment, but for certain, I don't know.
Where would Mr. O'Keefe have been?
Been in the ambulance? Again, don't know for certain.
Could have been or was in the ambulance?
At this time, I don't know.
Okay. Let's go to the phone. Stop. Okay. Taking a look at both screens, you see the group of people, including the individual with the yellow jacket at the bottom screen,
Yes.
that appear to be the same from a different angle, same group of people, including the person with the yellow jacket on the top screen.
Yes.
Who was the person that was directed to get the medical history from my client?
McLaughlin?
You believe that's Miss McLaughlin?
No.
You don't think that's her?
I'd have to rewind to know where she went.
Well, let me ask you a couple of other questions. In the bottom screen, you see a police officer?
Yes.
You see a woman with long hair standing next to the police officer?
Yes.
That appeared to be my client,
Yes.
an individual with a fire jacket on, right?
Yes.
And Ms. McLaughlin was directed to get medical history and interview my client, correct?
Yes.
Does that appear to be what she's doing right there?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
At this point, where do you believe you were now?
I don't remember.
Think you might have been in the ambulance?
I don't remember.
You testified earlier, and this has been a continuously running video on the top, testified earlier that when you left the screen with that gurney, you got in the ambulance, correct?
We headed that way, yes.
So firefighter Flematti, it's not a trick question. Where did you go when you left the screen?
It would have been to either gather equipment or to put the patient in the ambulance.
Okay? When did what equipment did you need to gather?
It would have been anything that was left by the patient's side, whether it was a first-in bag, airway bag, any other equipment, basically.
You were doing chest compressions.
I didn't state that.
You didn't say that?
I said I did chest compressions at some point. I didn't say I did them continuously throughout the call.
So you just put John O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance and went to look for some equipment?
Not what I said. So chest compressions were done continually throughout, whether they were done by me or by another provider, I can't tell you specifically.
So when you left the screen and John O'Keefe is on the gurney, you're engaged in vital, life-saving, a vital life-saving endeavor, correct?
Yes,
That had to have been your focus, correct?
that was at the time, yes.
And you wanted to get him out of the cold, the weather,
Yes,
because it was inclement, it was freezing out, correct?
yes,
So you wanted to put him in the ambulance, right? And you wanted to continue CPR because in your words, you testified on direct examination, you believe that there might be some viability left.
yes,
So CPR and life-saving measures were absolutely vital at that point.
yes,
You didn't go find equipment, you got in the ambulance, didn't you?
yes.
So at this point, you're in the ambulance, correct?
At this point, I don't know.
You indicated you never got back out of the ambulance after you got in, correct?
I don't believe so, no.
Did you see any place in that video where you had any sort of detailed conversation with my client?
No,
Did you see any place in that video where you engaged my client and said, how'd you get here? What happened? And she said, I hit him. And you said, how'd you hit him? All the stuff that you testified earlier to.
I didn't see that in the video, no.
You indicated in a police report during an interview that you had with Yuri Buknik on February 8th. That my client said, I hit him, correct?
Correct.
You remember having that conversation with Sergeant Buknik?
I don't recall the conversation, but I'm trusting that your records are accurate.
Is it true that during that conversation, you indicated to Sergeant Buknik that, quote, Katie spoke with Karen Reed. Katie is Katie who?
McLaughlin.
Katie spoke with Karen Reed, collecting medical history for the victim, and was also told by Karen that the last time she saw the victim was at 1 a.m. that morning. That is when Anthony, who's Anthony,
Would have been myself.
that is when Anthony heard Karen say, I hit him, I hit him. Is that what you told Sergeant Buknik?
I don't recall.
Does it appear that this is the time, firefighter Flematti, that Katie McLaughlin is getting a medical history from my client, or attempting to?
I can't tell from the video, no.
You do know, however, that during this time, you're in an ambulance probably 30 or 40 feet away with the doors closed.
I don't know.
But you certainly don't see yourself in that frame, do you?
Doesn't appear to be, no.
Good. If we're done with the videos, can we take it down, please?
Of course, yes, I think we are finished. Thank you. You were the lead firefighter on that team that night, correct?
Lead paramedic.
Lead paramedic, thank you. You understood, obviously, the gravity of hearing a statement like, I hit him, some sort of an explanation about what may have happened to the victim, correct?
Correct.
That statement could potentially have direct relationship to, or a direct relational impact on how life-saving measures are done by the medical personnel that you turn the victim over to.
Correct.
You testified at the grand jury that you wanted, once you got to the hospital, you wanted to be as quote unquote helpful as possible when you handed over the patient, correct?
Correct.
You said you actually stayed at Good Samaritan for an additional 10 to 20 minutes, which is your habit in cases like this, because you wanted to be quote unquote an asset to the medical intervention team, correct? Correct. That team includes the doctors and nurses that were trying to provide life-saving services to Mr. Oakey.
Correct.
But you never relayed to a single doctor or a single nurse a single word about a woman who said, I hit him, did you?
So documentation for us ends at transfer of patient care. As far as my memory, I do remember relaying that information to the doctors and nurses.
You do.
Yes.
Have you ever testified about that ever previous to this?
Never been asked about that.
Oh, nobody ever asked you, so you didn't tell anybody.
In the court setting, no.
Testified in front of a grand jury, didn't you?
Yes.
Shalali asked you a bunch of questions. During the course of that conversation that was under oath, did you ever disclose that you told the doctors and the nurses that you heard a woman say, I hit him?
I recall telling the doctors and nurses that there's a question of that the patient was hit by a vehicle or we don't know, is what I directly said to the doctors and nurses.
You directly told the doctors and nurses that there was a question about whether or not he was hit by a vehicle, right?
Yes.
Have you ever said that in any context, either to the police or in a grand jury before today?
I don't recall.
You were asked a bunch of questions yesterday, the day before yesterday, and this morning by Mr. Lally.
Yes.
Did you say it on your direct examination?
I wasn't asked that question.
So since Mr. Lally didn't ask you, you just left it out that you told the doctors, the medical professionals, that in fact you described that this patient was likely hit by a car.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You wrote a report as well, correct?
Yes.
We talked a little bit about that report. There's an area in the report for a narrative
Yes.
about your observations, your experiences with this patient, correct?
Correct.
Your job as a lead paramedic is to be as detailed as possible, correct?
Correct.
You want to provide and impart the most detail you possibly can about an incident to assist in medical intervention, correct?
Correct.
Take a look at page 3 of 5 of your report.
Yes,
You see that narrative area?
I do.
Can you point to that portion of your report where you indicate that my client said the words, I hit him?
It doesn't say that.
Can you point to your report, the portion of your report where you indicate that you told the doctors and nurses that she said, I hit him?
Doesn't say that.
Can you point to that portion of your report where you indicate that your concern for the patient was that he had been hit by a car?
Doesn't say that.
You indicated on direct examination that you were, quote unquote, looking for anything that we could pass on to the emergency room that would assist.
Yeah.
I think it might have been an assistance to the emergency room personnel to indicate that you believe this person been hit by a car?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you believe that that would have been an important piece of information to pass on to the emergency room assistants?
Objection.
I'll let him have that.
Thanks. It would have been important, yes.
And it's nowhere in your reports, correct?
It's not in the reports, no.
You didn't tell that to the police when you were interviewed 8 days later.
I was not asked about how or what I was.
My question is, did you tell the police 8 days later, or 9 days later when you were interviewed? And you didn't tell the grand jury that, correct?
No.
And you didn't mention that on direct examination in front of these jurors, did you?
No.
I have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay.